Growy Mill and Museum in Hinsdale, Illinois presents A Journey on the Underground Railroad. Children and adults can experience what it was like to be a passenger on the Underground Railroad. This theatrical experience begins with a skit in which passengers will meet the legendary Harriet Tubman. Then, you will follow Hinsdale blacksmith John Coe on a journey down Salt Creek to Growy Mill. The Underground Railroad actually operated in Hinsdale, Oak Brook, Lyons, Downers Grove, and other nearby towns. Experience the sights and sounds of making your escape on the Underground Railroad, September 27th and 28th. Contact the Growy Mill Museum for further details.
Run to Jesus.
Shun the danger. I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Run to Jesus.
Shun the danger. I don't expect to stay much longer here.
That's your line. Don't expect to stay
Much longer here.
I don't expect to stay
Much longer here.
He will be our dearest friend and will help us to the end.
I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Run to Jesus.
Shun the danger. I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Oh, I thought I heard him say,
There are lions in the way.
I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Run to Jesus.
Shun the danger. I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Many mansions in the sky, me and you for me.
I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Run to Jesus.
Shun the danger. I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Run to Jesus.
Shun the danger. I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Welcome to the historic Growy Mill. You are about to take a journey back to the days when the Underground Railroad operated right here at the mill. My name is Glennette Tilly Turner, and this is Darwin Macbeth Walton. We are co-authors of a book entitled Journeys on the Underground Railroad, and creators of the adventure you are about to experience. In addition to being a writer, Darwin is a fine musician, and she has planned and produced, with the aid of all these other able musicians, the first segment of tonight's journey. And upon learning of the people in this very area who are involved in the Underground Railroad here, I wrote the second portion of the journey. Darwin will get us started.
Gospel train. Do you want to talk or with gospel train?
No,
You wanna talk?
Deep River. I don't, I mean,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never done He is. He's confused.
Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Oh, don't you want to go to that gospel feast? east, that promised land where all is peace. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground.
Tonight, in keeping with the museum's mission of providing information and educational programs for families and for the community, we're going to lead you on a journey and share a glimpse of what might have been like to be a freedom seeker and to seek shelter on the Underground Railroad. As you know, the mill is listed on one of the many stops on the Underground Railroad, as well as and that provided, I can't get myself together tonight, that provided shelter, food, and warmth for freedom seekers on a cold and wet wintry night. The mill is listed as one of those stops, and tonight we're going to go as a group. You're going to become a part of a group of freedom seekers finding your promised land. So we are indebted to many people of all races, creeds, and colors and religions who shared in the successes and failures of the Underground Railroad. We should be very grateful to them because they did so at the risk of their own lives and freedom. So tonight, we're going to see what it felt like to be on one of those trips. So gather close, and we're going to be waiting for someone to meet us here. So share tonight with us while we wait. We're going to sing, tell some stories. If you have anything, I'd like you to share our songs if you know them. And maybe Andrew might even teach us one. I'd like to introduce you to the cast, which I should have done first. Ms. Renako Robinson, who is a Chicago school teacher and also a recording artist and a dramatist. We have Big Lou Johnson, who is also a recording artist, singer, and dramatist. And we have our very own, Lou is from Chicago also, and we have our very own Andrew Calhoun. Andrew is a balladeer, songwriter, producer, soon to be author of a book, and of course he shared the chore, I should say, of gathering all of this material that we're going to give you tonight. We're going to try to keep it really fun for the kids especially. But he is responsible for a lot of the research that went into this program. So, welcome, freedom seekers.
And welcome
Come
to
rest
come in
yourself.
if you can hear better back there's a couple of chairs and there's some space. If you're having trouble here, and come
Rest
gather
yourselves. And wait for the traveler. I hear the
in. We don't spit that far.
hark. I hear the train coming. With us.
Renako.
The gospel trains are coming, I hear it just at hand. I hear the car wheels rambling and rolling through the land. Get on board, little children, get on board. Little children, get on board. Little children, there's room for many or more.
The fare's cheap and all can go. Rich and poor are there. No second class aboard this train. No difference in the fare.
Get on board, little children, get on board. Little children, get on board. Little children, there's room for many or more.
Get on
Board, little children, get on board.
kids understand that the Underground Railroad wasn't about a train? Yes. Okay, I wanted to make sure everybody knows that. It was a way of moving, an invisible way of moving people.
Well, we're sure glad to have you with us tonight anyway. And we're waiting for Mr. John Coe to guide us onto our next safe house, where we'll be able to eat and rest for a while before going on to the last lap of our journey, which will be dark and dangerous. So listen carefully to those who are telling you what to do. Andrew, you may want to wake up old Jacob up there, but we better get ready to go. The dogs may be out too, you know.
Wake up, Jacob, days are breaking, I'm on my way. Wake up, Jacob, days are breaking, I'm on my way. Wake up, Jacob, days are breaking, I'm
On my way,
Wake up, Jacob, days are breaking,
I'm on my way.
I wanna go to heaven when I die.
Do love the Lord,
Wanna go to heaven when I die.
do love the Lord.
Wake up, Jacob, days are breaking,
I'm on my way.
Wake up, Jacob, days are breaking,
I'm on my way.
I got some friends on the other shore.
Do love the Lord,
I want to see them more and more and more.
do love the Lord. Wake up, Jacob, days are breaking, I'm on my way. Wake up, Jacob, days are breaking, I'm on my way.
Now, the Underground Railroad represents the most massive act of civil disobedience in American history. From its beginning around 1800 to the time of the Civil War, the Underground Railroad assisted 100,000 freedom seekers, and by 1860, around 20,000 were safe in Canada.
Well, that's right, Lou. And the cost to the Southern economy led to the passage of the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, which criminalized any Northerner who didn't seize runaway slaves and turn them in. Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin, written in 1852, told the whole story and did a great deal to sway the emotions of the Northerners.
Now, she based her famous scene of Eliza crossing the ice on a true story from the Rankins, who operated an underground railroad station in Ripley, Ohio. And the Rankins lived 150 yards across the Ohio River from Kentucky. Now, on a bitter night, in the winter of 1838, a woman, who we will call Mary, picked her way down Tuckahoe Ridge toward the frozen river. She followed the track from the plantation, keeping herself out of sight. And when she reached the snow-covered floodplain, she carried a baby wrapped in a shawl. A day or two earlier, a slave trader had appeared at her master's estate to negotiate the price of that child. And hearing the baying dogs on her trail, she grabbed a hold of a plank and she raced to the river's edge.
Run, Mary, run, run, Mary, run, oh, run, Mary, run. I know the other world's not like this. Fire in the east and fire in the west.
I know the other world's not like this.
Bound to burn the wilderness.
I know the other world's not like this.
If Jordan River is the river to cross,
I know the other world's not like this.
stretch your rod and come across.
I know the other world's not like this.
So run, Mary, run, run, Mary, run, oh, run, Mary, run.
I know the other world's not like this.
Oh, trouble will come like a gloomy cloud.
I know the other world's not like this.
Gather thick and thunder
I
loud.
know the other world's not like this.
If this was the judgment day,
I know the other world's not like this.
every little soul would want to pray. So run, Mary, run. Run, Mary, run. Oh, run, Mary, run. I know the other world's not like this. Run, Mary, run. Run, Mary, run. Oh, run, Mary, run. I know the other world's not like this.
I know the other world's not like this.
Now there had been a thaw, and the ice was full of air holes and cracks. First step that she made on the ice, she broke through. And for a moment, Mary, she just stood there. She was paralyzed. Then she plunged forward, carrying her baby in one hand, and she had the plank in the other hand. And the ice seemed firmer as she ran toward that Ohio shore. But then she broke through it, fell into it up to her chest. And she pushed that baby ahead of her onto that ice. And she crept along it until she fell through one more time. And again, she managed to throw the baby ahead of her before she sank. Now crawling back up onto that ice, she continued her progress until the ice just disintegrated beneath her. This time, she sank in only though up to her knees. And because of that, she knew that she was
River is chilly and cold,
one more river to cross.
but I got the glory in my soul.
One more river to cross.
Sing with us.
To get on the chariot and travel on.
One more river to cross.
Oh, wasn't that a wide river? That river of Jordan, Lord. Wide river, there's one more river to cross.
Now, when she reached that Ohio shore, she just collapsed. A man came up out the darkness, and he just loomed over her. He was a Ripley man named Chancey Shaw, and he was a slave catcher. He was preparing to seize the woman when he heard that baby just whimpering. Surprising himself, he told her, "Woman, you have won your freedom." He led her. She was soaked, wet, and freezing. He led her to the edge of this village, and there he pointed to a long flight of steps that led to the Rankins' farmhouse. He told her to make for the light, saying that no slave has ever been got back from that house.
Oh, the good old chariot is passing by.
One more river to cross.
She jarred the earth and shook the sky.
One more river to cross.
We're told that the four wheels run by love.
One more river to cross.
And we're told that the high wheels run by faith.
One more river to cross.
Oh, wasn't that a wide river? That river of Jordan, Lord. Wide river, there's one more river to cross.
She seemed so simple as she looked up in our faces, John Rankin Jr. recalled. How little did we know that this courageous mother, who was though now unknown, was to stir the heart of a great nation. More than a decade later, she would be transformed in the imagination of the novelist Harriet Beecher Stowe into the fictional slave Eliza, and her perilous crossing of the Ohio River would achieve the dimensions of myth as the most famous rendering of a fugitive's escape ever written. When Abraham Lincoln met Harriet Beecher Stowe, he said to her, "So you're the little woman who wrote the book that made this great war." The story of the woman crossing the Ohio stands at the crossroads of American history. Nobody really knows her name, but I like to think that she's the woman who made that great war.
Before the Western novels became bestsellers, the slave narratives published in the 19th century were the most popular literary form in all of America. One of these was called The Fugitive Blacksmith by James W.C. Pennington.
It was in the month of November, somewhere past the middle of the month. It was a bright day, and all was quiet. Most of the slaves were resting. Others had leave to visit their friends on other plantations. The evening previous, I had arranged my little bundle of clothes and had secreted it to some distance from the house. I had spent most of the forenoon in my workshop. It was a day of heartache to me. I distinctly remember the two great difficulties that stood in the way of my flight. I had a father and a mother whom I dearly loved. I also had 6 and 4 brothers on the plantation. Now the question was, shall I hide my purpose from them? Moreover, how will my flight affect them when I am gone? Will they not be suspected? Will not the whole family be sold off, as is generally the case when one of its members flees? A still more trying question was, how can I expect to succeed? I have no knowledge of distance or direction. Now, I know that Pennsylvania is a free state, but I don't know where its soil begins or where that of Maryland ends. And with my recollection, no one had attempted to escape from my master, but I had, in many cases of my mind, eyes of slaves of other planters who had failed and who had been made examples of by flogging and selling them off far south, where they were never, ever to be seen by their friends again. I was not without some serious apprehension that such would be my fate. There was a strange and horrifying belief that if I did not meet the crisis on that day, that my ear would be nailed to the doorpost forever. Now it seemed that no consideration, not even that of life itself, doorpost, and the belief that if I did not meet it, that something would tempt me to give up the thought of fleeing. And then, when I considered the difficulties of the way, the reward that would be offered the human bloodhounds that would be set upon my track, the weariness, the hunger, the gloomy thought of not losing all of one's friends in one day, but having to make new friends in a strange place that I never ever heard of. But the hour has come, and the man must act or forever be a slave.
freedom seeker would be a graveyard, because it's the last place anybody wanted to go into at night. Keep it running, I gonna overtake you.
Keep it running, I gonna overtake you. Keep it running,
Keep it running, fire gonna overtake you, way down yonder in that lonesome graveyard.
Running, keep running,
Hear old Egypt howling.
Keep it running, hear old Egypt howling. Keep it running, hear old Egypt howling, way down yonder in that lonesome graveyard. Brother, don't let your sister condemn you. Brother, don't let your sister condemn you. Brother, don't let your sister condemn you, way down yonder in the lonesome graveyard.
Mother, don't let your daughters condemn you. Mother, don't let your daughters condemn you. Mother, don't let your daughters condemn you,
way down yonder in the lonesome graveyard. Hear old Egypt howling now.
Oh!
Hear old Egypt howling now.
Oh!
Hear old Egypt howling, way down yonder in that lonesome graveyard. James Pennington escaped successfully from Maryland in 1828 to become a teacher, writer, and minister. He was the first African American to receive an honorary degree from a European university, a doctorate of divinity at the University of Heidelberg. He wrote, "Slavery is weak. In every case, master and slave and every colored person elevated becomes a step in the ladder upon which his every colored person elevated becomes a step in the ladder upon which his people are to ascend."
The marriage ceremony. Well, did you know that in 1838, James Pennington performed a marriage ceremony? And Frederick Douglass in New York City arrived freedom seeker Anna Murray. And Frederick Douglass went on to become one of the most famous and powerful writers and Frederick Douglass went on to become one of the abolitionist movement famous and powerful writers and creators of Douglass wrote in his abolitionist autobiography of any other
In coming to a fixed determination to run away, we did more than Patrick Henry determination when we resolved upon liberty. We did more than Patrick Henry. It was a doubtful we resolved upon liberty and almost sudden death. With us, it was a doubtful liberty at most. I should prefer almost sudden death, hopeless bondage. For my part, we were at times remarkably buoyant, hopeless, singing hymns and making joyous exclamations remarkably buoyant, almost as singing hymns and making as if we had reached the land of freedom, almost as triumphant in tone as if we had reached the land of freedom in our repeated singing of. A keen observer might have detected in our bound for the land of Canaan something more than a hope for I am bound for the land of Canaan. We meant to reach something more than a hope, and the north reaching was our heaven. We meant to reach run to Jesus was a favorite air, was our heaven. Had a double run to Jesus was a favorite meaning, and in the lips of some double. It meant a double expectation of in the lips of some summons to the world of spirit. Expectation, but in the lips of a speedy summons to the world of spirits. But in the lips of evil, danger, and deliver which are evil and danger, which are slaves.
longer. Shun the danger. I don't expect to stay much longer here.
I don't expect to stay
Much longer here.
Run to Jesus.
I don't expect to stay
much longer.
I don't expect to stay
much longer. Shun the danger.
I don't expect to stay
much longer. I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Run to Jesus.
I don't expect to stay much longer. I don't expect to stay much longer. Shun the
Oh, I thought I
danger.
heard him say
I don't expect to stay much longer. I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Run to Jesus.
I don't expect to stay much longer. I don't expect to stay much longer. Shun the danger there will be. I don't expect to stay much longer. I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Run to Jesus.
I don't expect to stay much longer. I don't expect to stay much longer. Shun the danger. I don't expect to stay much longer here.
Now that was Frederick Douglass's favorite hymn. There was also another very famous person in history that most of you know about, and probably the most well-loved and celebrated and most well-written about was Harriet Tubman. Now, what some of you don't know is about her early childhood and some of the experiences that she had as a child. So we're going to have our wonderful Renako tell us about that. Harriet Tubman was called Moses because she led people, because of the way she led the people to freedom. And she never lost a freedom seeker. It was said, I'm going to give you a little secret that nobody told me to tell you. Said that she packed a gun. She had a gun. And if anybody in her group decided they were going to go back, they couldn't make it any further, she would say, you'll either go on with the group or you die. So she never shot anybody, but she threatened them, and nobody ever went back. So she saved them all.
Yeah.
So that was Renako is going to tell us about Harriet Tubman.
when Israel was in Egypt's land. Let my people go, oppressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Thus saith the Lord, bold Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn dead. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land, and tell old Pharaoh, let my people go.
My birth name was Armanita Ross. I was born about 60 miles south of Baltimore, Maryland in 1820 or 1821. When I was 6 years old, I was put to work taking care of a younger child. When I was a teenager, I stepped in front of an object that an overseer was throwing at another slave, and my face and head were injured. As a result, I suffered severe headaches and blackouts for the rest of my life. My mother, Harriet Ross, took loving care of me for 6 months. I renamed myself Harriet in honor of my sweet mother. In 1844, I fell in love with a free black man named John Tubman.
All right, man.
And I married him. When I was a little girl, I saw my older sister taken away by a slave trader. The memory of their frightened faces never faded. My young master, he died in 1849. And when I found out I was to be sold, I decided to run away. See, I knew that few people in Dorchester County could afford to buy slaves, and I was afraid of being sold to someone in the deep South in the blazing sun. Neither my husband nor my brothers would go with me, and I had to leave my family that I loved so much. I could not read nor write, but I had a good mind, see? And I learned all I could about that Underground Railroad and the people that had helped other slaves to escape. I traveled the Underground Railroad by myself.
Yes, you did.
I did. I did. And I made it all the way to Philadelphia. And 2 years later, I went back to Maryland for my husband. And I found that he had remarried some other woman.
Mm.
See, marriage and divorce laws did not apply to us slaves. And John refused to leave his wife. But I risked my life 19 times to go back to that old neighborhood. And I led members of my family and many more on to freedom. I conducted some people all the way to Canada and helped them get settled there. When I found I had crossed that line, I looked at my hands and I couldn't believe I was the same person. There was such a glory over everything. The sun came down like gold through the trees and over the fields, and I felt like I was in heaven. I had crossed that line.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade,
Wade
in the water.
in the water.
God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Look at that band.
God's gonna trouble the water.
Oh, it must be the children that Moses led.
Yeah, God's gonna trouble the water. Come on and wade in the water. Come on and wade
in the water, children, wade.
Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, who's that yonder all dressed in red?
God's gonna trouble the water.
Well, it must be the children of the Israelites. God's gonna trouble the water. Come on and wade in the water. Come on and wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Yonder I think I see Mr. John.
Is that
Cole.
Mr. John coming there?
With Harry?
Yes.
And Harriet?
How you doing? Boy, we had trouble getting here. Come on, Harriet. This is my wife, Harriet. Harriet, this is my wife, Harriet.
Hi, Harriet.
Nice How you doing?
Harry.
Oh,
How you doing, Mr. Cole?
wonderful, wonderful. See
Yeah,
you.
what's up? How
Yeah.
you doing, Mr. John?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. See you.
So these are our freedom seekers
Oh, boy.
tonight. then.
Yes.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
You better put on your coats, wrap up tight and warm.
I'm John Cole,
Get
the
all your
blacksmith
things, gather your things.
From over here in Hinsdale. And you are slaves. So we prefer to call you freedom seekers, not slaves, but freedom seekers.
Freedom
so tonight we're going to go down by the creek. Now there's one lady and a baby who didn't arrive yet, and we have to go look for them. We have to wait to the creek. Now if we hear any dogs or anything like that, we have to go to the Graw Mill. Mr. Grow said we could hide in the mill. So first of all, get your things and come on out here, gather them up, and we're going to go to the creek. Wait, I'm going to leave you with a lantern, so wait for me and wait for Harriet.
Come on and wait.
Wade in the water,
Come on and
children,
wade in the water. God's gonna trouble.
the water.
Come on and
Wade, y'all better wade.
in the water.
Come on and wade.
We do have to remember that there are slave catchers in the area, so everyone get close.
I'm going to go signal, Harriet. You tell them a little bit about the march.
All right. Okay, this is actually the first time I've ever come with John down to the creek to meet the freedom seekers. Usually you would come to our house in Hinsdale, and when the time was right, we would hide you under a false bottom in the wagon and put a tarpaulin over the top. And then John would transport you here to the Grow Mill. Do you think it's our freedom seeker? This creek, Salt Creek, is also a natural pathway for freedom seekers to follow in the Hinsdale area, particularly. That you would know that if you stayed along the creek, you would find safe houses. Also, along the shores of the creek, there are trees and bushes and rocks and even some caves that would provide shelter and a place to hide. Now, I will tell you that finding food on your journey can be very, very difficult. In the summertime, there are bushes that provide berries, edible berries, and in the fall, you need to look for trees that bear nuts that you can eat. Okay? Also, you look at the trees can help guide you with a sense of direction. Remember that moss only grows on the north side of the tree, and north is where you want to go for freedom. I don't know, John, I'm getting awfully worried.
Well, I don't hear any dogs. You hear any dogs anywhere?
I don't know, but I am getting awfully worried about that other freedom seeker. I don't know if we should wait any longer or not. Okay. Is that a dog, John?
You're right, you're right.
All right, we better go to the mill. Everyone, turn around. We're going to go to the Grow Mill. There are slave catchers out.
Anybody else with a flashlight? Light the stairs down to the broken here. There's some freedom seekers. Yeah, okay. Okay, come on. She said we can come on down.
All right, everyone. Mrs. Rowley is here, so we can go into the mill. I'm so glad she's home.
Well, thanks very much for helping the freedom seekers here, putting us away, hiding us out, because we heard some dogs out there, and they were getting closer. But you know, we lost a girl with a baby in the woods. Now we heard that she was making her way along the creek, but we hadn't seen her at all, and we couldn't stay any longer because I heard, and they heard too, these dogs.
Heard some dogs.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. I know you've had a long, hard journey getting here, so all I can do is make you as comfortable as I can. And
That's-
we're hopefully,
That's everything, that's everything, yeah, sure.
well, we know what it's like to seek freedom. We're immigrants from Germany.
Yeah, how long had you been here?
Oh, a few years.
Yeah,
And, you know, we always help people that seek freedom.
Well, that's commendable, that's very nice. Let's give Mrs. Garley a big hand here. Harriet, have you heard anything more from the?
No, I haven't.
About
but
the lady
I'm really
with the baby?
concerned about her.
Well,
Oh, that might be her. Oh, slow down.
Are you all right, dear? You're safe now.
we waited as long as we could out there, but we heard dogs. Did you hear dogs? Okay, well, you're safe here. You're all
How
right
is your
here.
baby?
Just to catch your breath.
You're safe now, dear.
I'm so glad you found us. Because they were waiting for you.
You can rest now.
Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Take it to the woods.
Okay,
Miss Nicole.
Yeah,
I will.
all right, listen,
I will
you stay here with
stay here a while.
lady and the
I
baby,
will-
okay? Yeah, you can rest a while, let them rest a
Okay,
while.
I will see if I can stall who's up there.
We're gonna rest here for a while. This is the end of the journey, but we're gonna. The lady with the baby is gonna sing a spiritual. Is gonna sing a spiritual before we depart, and then Glenette Tilly Turner, the lady who put together the script, who's with us, right over. Where is Glenette? Where are you? And she's gonna answer some questions about the Underground Railroad. So, if you have any questions, you can think of them now. You know, maybe about how they traveled or how they escaped the slaves or the slave catchers, or how what they ate. You know, things like that. Maybe where they went to the bathroom. You know, a lot of questions that you might have. And this is Glenette right here. She's the lady who has the answer. She wrote the book, and she's our local expert on it. And if she doesn't know the answers, I don't think anybody here does. So we're going to have
can go back
it's the
over
lady
there.
with the baby.
On that bench, if possible.
Renuka, is she there? She was resting up. Oh, is she here?
Right here. Excuse me, could I just, no, may I just sit with you?
She'll be coming in a minute, I think.
You can sit there. Great.
Last week there was another couple of kids who were singing along.
Thank
with
you.
us, and there was a bird. This is Renuka.
Renako.
Is she too worn out to think of 50 years? Maybe she'll be here. Well, wait a minute. Here she, I think she's coming
She
now.
says there, I'm going to bring it back to you.
Yeah, here she is. Here she is. She's going to give us a couple spirituals. Coming up.
got long to stay here. Steal away.
Still away.
Steal away. Steal away to Jesus. Steal away. Steal. I ain't got long to stay here. My Lord calls me. He calls me by the thunder. The trumpet sound. You know when you hear that song, that means it's time for you to go. So you tell everybody that when they hear steal away, that means they got to steal away from here, from the plantation. You understand?
Can you sing another verse?
I ain't got long to stay here. Green trees are bending, sinner stands a trembling. The trumpet sounds within my soul. I ain't got long to stay here. Steal away. Steal away. Steal away to steal away home. I ain't got time. I ain't got long.
Well, that's nice. Old spiritual. Lynette now is going to take questions and give answers. Lynette,
Yeah, thank you.
you're on. Kiddo.
Thank you. If you had really been escaping in the days
Put
that,
it up a little closer.
in the days of,
Real close.
No,
Okay.
that's not necessary.
thank
Oh,
you.
that's not necessary?
No.
Okay, that's not necessary. I'm sorry.
If you had been escaping on the days when the original Underground Railroad operated rather than having this vicarious journey tonight, our journey would not have ended here as it does tonight. But if you had been trying to find your way to Chicago, you might have taken the Salt Creek, just followed the creek as it snakes around toward the Des Plaines River. And it would come to the Des Plaines River, then you would have been able to go northward toward Lake Street and traveled overland as John Baptiste Point de Sable and many of the early pioneers did. Or you might have remained on the Des Plaines River, and instead of going to Chicago, you might have gone north to towns like Gurnee and gone on into Wisconsin. Many of the slave catchers knew that Chicago was the terminus of many Illinois Underground Railroad routes, and so some people felt it was safe to bypass Chicago if they were attempting to escape. But others found such a wonderful interracial community of abolitionists, people who worked together across economic lines and religious lines, and really just did whatever they could to make the Underground Railroad succeed. And so Chicago had a viable community of freedom seekers. In fact, the Quinn Chapel AME Church was a location, and there were men there that were called the Liberty Association, and they acted as night watchmen as the residents slept. and then if they saw any sign of danger, they would alert the residents. As you heard in the earlier session, the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 was really very such a punitive act, and people could be thrown back into slavery. People who had escaped could be thrown back into slavery, and people who had assisted them could be put into jail or given just extremely heavy fines. And so there was real risk involved for everyone that participated in any form in the Underground Railroad. Ogden Avenue was originally called Southwest Highway, and it too would have been a route into Chicago. So with that background, I wonder what questions you have remaining. I just thought I would, comment on that. Yes.
When the freedom seekers were on the run, how did they know who they could trust?
They didn't. Just imagine if you had. Would you repeat it, please, Mrs. Cole?
What she asked is, how did the freedom seekers know who they could trust, who they could go to?
There's no way of knowing. Just imagine if Eliza had knocked on a door of someone who was a foe rather than a friend. After all she had gone through, she would have been put back into slavery. And just imagine having traveled long distances and being hungry and cold and maybe coming to a cabin where there's smoke coming out of the chimney and the smell of food roasting. You had no way of knowing if you knocked on that door what type of reception you would get. But often by word of mouth there was some communication. Like if you had stopped, here at the Growie Mill, for example, Growie might have told you who operated the next station, or someone who might be of assistance in Chicago when you reached there. And so that was one way of knowing, but there are just so many unknowns that were involved in the whole process. Any other hands? I can't really see your hands in the dark there.
Any other questions?
Yes, the person at the very end.
How long was their journey to where they wanted to go?
Kind of depend. You mean what would the end point be?
Correct.
Before the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, Chicago was really excellent place because there was a large black community and an interracial group of people who were supportive and who were abolitionists. And for the first time, people who had done all the work of the plantation and were able to benefit from their own labor and really, make a life for themselves. But then after the Fugitive Slave Act, no place in the United States was safe, and Canada was considered the destination. In fact, there was overnight, the entire congregation of Quinn Chapel went to Canada because they just really no longer felt safe in the United States. So the destination, the endpoint changed after the Fugitive Slave Act. Actually, I was interested to learn that there were many places west as well as south in addition to north. We think of Canada as being the promised land or the one and only destination. But recently I learned and wrote a book about a location in Florida, in St. Augustine, Florida, called Fort Mose, that had been a destination even before Harriet Tubman began her Underground Railroad work. People who had been enslaved in South Carolina learned that the Spanish had said that anyone escaping and who would convert to Catholicism would be freed. The Spanish didn't keep their word right away, but eventually did. And then there were places in the West that were destinations. So Canada wasn't the only one. If you look at the website of the National Park Service, it's called the Network to Freedom, the Underground Railroad Network to Freedom website, you will see how many states were places that were either stops on the Underground Railroad and places in the Caribbean, and as well as the others that I mentioned that were destinations that are not generally known. Any other hands? I can't see.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Would you repeat?
Would you be able to travel with your parents?
That would be very rare to travel as a family. There were families, because the whole point in many cases, the motivation to families was that they wanted to be able to remain together as a family unit. And so some rare cases families traveled, but I think more often maybe the man and the family would go ahead and then come back, attempt to come back, or there were cases of mothers who escaped and came back for their children. There was one case of a Mrs. Anderson who had escaped and came back for her children. She knew that every day they came to the spring to get water, and so she hid in the rushes or in the weeds just out of sight and sang a lullaby that she knew that her children would recognize, and and gave them instruction on how to join her. Probably they went back, took the water back to where they were supposed to or expected to take it, and then she probably told them how to join her, in that evening, and then they escaped. But I wrote a book that you'll see up on the table called Running for Our Lives, and when families escaped, they had to do such creative things because slave catchers knew that 4 or 5 people had escaped together, they'd be easy to track, but and especially if it was snowing. But in the case, in the example in the book, this family had the mother walk in the snow first, because her steps were bigger than the kids. Then the kids walked in the mother's footsteps, and then the father came along behind all the other family members and chomped down their footsteps. So if slave catchers came, they had no way of knowing, how many people had walked that way. So there were cases where families escaped together, but it was even harder than for 1 or 2 people to escape, particularly 1 or 2 adults to escape. Yes. Any other questions? Well, I just really.
There's one question
excuse
over
me.
here.
Yes.
When the freedom seekers would get so far north, let's say that the slave catchers were on their trail, like how did they identify the people? Because they didn't have photographs back then. So did they just go by like a general description?
Well, actually, it would be any.
Would you want to repeat the question?
Okay, she asked how would if the slave catchers were on the trail of a freedom seeker, how would they know that was the person they were looking for?
Really, they probably didn't care. I mean, they would just catch anybody,
Right.
And really there was great danger.
Exactly.
But they also there were certain rewards if someone, particular person, was sought, and the slave holder had sent that slave catcher out, and so they would have ads in the paper, and of course inquire around town, and really just try to gather information as best they could. But
And there were many cases where the slave catchers would take free blacks, and try to and sell them.
Right.
I mean, they weren't
really,
that picky.
because really, it wasn't like even having an identification card encased in plastic like we have now. But if a person had slave identification, had papers, then all they had to do was, take them and rip them up. I was going to do the sound effects here with this paper. But, it's just to crumple the papers, and it was their word against the slave catchers and the enslaved persons, or the self-emancipated persons, a word against the slave catchers. And so, it really was dangerous. But again, there was a case in Chicago, in Olivet Baptist Church. There was a minister whose name was Richard Baptiste, and or Richard D. Baptiste. I have to check my record to see the exact last name. But he was a free person and had free papers. And he had a brother in Detroit who operated an excursion boat line across the Detroit River by day. But by night, he worked with other abolitionists in Detroit and would transport people who were escaping to Canada. So the brother in Chicago who, if he found that someone was just feeling nervous about escaping and not having any papers, he would loan his own freedom papers to that person. The papers would be left with the brother, and the brother would get them back to the minister here. And so it were just endless examples of creativity and resourcefulness and trust and interdependence. It's just really the best in the human spirit, is exemplified in the Underground Railroad. I just think it was a wonderful period where people really stood up to be counted for one another and, lived by the golden rule, which is, of course, a good way to live. So it's just been a fascinating study. If you are interested in other examples, there's a book by a man named William Still. He was in Philadelphia at the anti-slavery office there. He was a black man who was the secretary of the Pennsylvania Anti-Slavery Society. It was an interracial organization, and there's just, again, great cooperation among all the members of the society. But William Still found his own long-lost brother through a chance interview. The brother came to the office because that office was known to be a place where fugitives or freedom seekers could come and get assistance or direction on, how to proceed in freedom. And as William Still was talking with this man, the man said what his parents' names were, and William Still, really stood still because those were his parents too. And he'd heard about a long-lost brother that had been, the mother had tried to escape with and had been recaptured, and then she escaped again with two daughters in the hopes that the older brothers would just be able to fend for themselves or be able to grow up in safety. And but they told the story of these brothers that had been left behind. Well, one brother had died, but this was the other brother. They had come to the office of William Still and was looking for his family. And of course, he found his family and found, starting with his brother. So then William Still realized how important it was to get anecdotal records of the places that freedom seekers had been enslaved, where they started out, what their family names were, and where they intended to go at the end of their journey, so that if other relatives came through the office, he could connect the families. And he was able to do that, and he wrote a book that, was almost 4 inches thick, of these accounts. They're first-hand accounts, and they're just fascinating reading. If you're a teacher or someone who's a history buff, it's just so interesting to know these stories. And there's one in particular it was been used in a children's story called Henry's Box. There was a man named Henry Box Brown, whose nickname was Box Brown, but he had the help of a white carpenter in Virginia, I think Richmond, and they made this crate. The carpenter made the crate and designed it so there'd be a knot hole at just the spot where, so that Henry could breathe. And Henry Box Brown climbed in, and the carpenter nailed the box shut and addressed it to William Still and the Philadelphia Anti-Slavery Society. Well, the box was placed on a ship, and the ship had ran into storms, and the box was turned upside down, and Henry was stood on his head. Just all kinds of things happened, and of course, the ship was delayed getting into Philadelphia. But when it did, the people from the Vigilance Society, or Anti-Slavery / Vigilance Society, went and claimed the box, took it to their offices, just thinking that there was no sound and that the expected arrival or Henry Brown would be dead. Well, when they pried it open, he stepped out and shook hands and said, "Hello, my name is Henry Brown, and I have a song I'd like to sing on this occasion." And so that is just one of the joyous and wonderful stories of triumph on the Underground Railroad.
Any other questions? Well, Lynette Turner is the foremost authority on the Underground Railroad in Illinois. So she's written several books, adult books and children's books. So please look at them, and they're for sale on the table. And we really enjoyed having you. So thank you.
All right, Darwin.
Tilly, big, I call her Tilly Turner. You're not Tilly Turner.
Thank you. I also, yes, I wanted to say that really it was a cooperative effort, and that Darwin Walton and I wrote a book called Journeys on the Underground Railroad, and then there are some Underground Railroad pins. You know, the symbol of the Underground Railroad is a running man, you know, the little person that's bent over running, and there are copies of that pin, beautiful pewter pins that are also there on the table where you enrolled or where you registered.
I ain't got long to stay here. Green trees are bending, sinner stands a trembling. The trumpet sounds within my soul. I ain't got long to stay here. Steal away, steal away, steal away. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children.
Wade
in the water, God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children. Wade in the water, God's gonna trouble the water. Look at that band.
God's gonna trouble the water. Oh, it must be the children that Moses led. Yeah, God's gonna trouble the water. Come on and wade in the water. Come on and wade
in the water, children. Wade
in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, who's that yonder all dressed in red?
Growy Mill and Museum in Hinsdale, Illinois presents A Journey on the Underground Railroad. Children and adults can experience what it was like to be a passenger on the Underground Railroad. This theatrical experience begins with a skit in which passengers will meet the legendary Harriet Tubman. Then, you will follow Hinsdale blacksmith John Coe on a journey down Salt Creek to Growy Mill. The Underground Railroad actually operated in Hinsdale, Oakbrook, Lyons, Downers Grove, and other nearby towns. Experience the sights and sounds of making your escape on the Underground Railroad, September 27th and 28th. Contact the Growy Mill Museum for further details.